Now the brass I use quite a bit of is a piece of 2/32 by 3/4, 2/32 by 1/2 inch. Use that for the runners, to mount the runners. On the front end, actually this is a little bit wider than the last car I made. It's where it takes the spindle to mount the runner. And the previous models I just butt soldered these up. It was just soldered right up to the plate right there. But this one here, to make things stronger, it's a little exaggerated side. Recess it in a little bit more, solder it on both sides, you got a stronger joint now. And it helps to have a drill press on hand, because when you fold these over, you want to drill one side and go through the other side. And I did these deliberately free-handed to show you. I got that one centered, and as I was drilling it came off-centered on the other side. And I also take a block of wood, sand it down, shape it down just enough to fit inside of here, so it's got even, it's not going to bend these two in and out as you're drilling. So the actual pieces I will be using, I'll use my drill press so I get a straight line going through there. And the front main axle, what I do is, I don't have enough pieces here, but I can demonstrate it. It's actually two pieces of tubing. It's a much tighter fit than what this is, and it fits inside the other, and it gives it a little more strength. And to add more strength to that, I'm using this aluminum, I guess it's strut material. It's hollow, and what that does, I got the two pieces of tubing together. I'll slide that inside. This is a tight fit. I'll slide that inside with a little bit of epoxy attached to all this, and just about maybe 2-3 degrees down angle, the trailing edge will face up. This will be the front of the craft, and that gives it a spoiler with some down pressure on the front end to keep it from wanting to flip on us. And it also gives the front end a little more strength. My steering shaft, it's basically like a go-kart. It's a piece of tubing inside a larger tubing. This has a little bit of slop in it because you want some free play. You don't want it stiffening up on you. This piece of brass plate here will have ball joint links attached to it, just like in a go-kart. That connects the tie rod ends to the front runners. This rear plate will get a single hole attached to a ball joint that attaches to the servo, and that's what's going to steer the front end. And all this gets soldered. Again, you just stick it through just a little bit to give it a stronger solder joint. What I've done before actually gluing the formers on is I've taken a piece of tubing, just sand the edge down a little bit so it's tapered, and just set it on the foam former, twist it through, comes out the other side, got a nice clean hole. And then you'll run this shaft right up through. Probably helps to do this before I glue them on too. Okay, I'm going to have to admit I kind of screwed up here. I had to remove that front former off of there. Kind of jumped the gun putting that in place first. You know, you can see the tube is up in place. Everything is moving. Could slide that up a little bit. And then all this gets epoxied on each side. And what I do too is I sand a little bit on the outside of this tubing, clean it off with some alcohol, and it gives the do the same thing with soldering. It gives it a better bite with the solder, and gives the solder something better to bite on. And the same thing with the glue. And then my servo will go right here. Just mounting the motor. That'll all go on top of here once I get it. So the height, it can vary. And then my runners, rear runners, they'll get attached just like the others. Just an L-shaped piece of brass soldered to the runner, a couple of screws to hold it in place. You can taper this down a little bit, lighten it up, and then like on the other one, I made a little ovals in it inside of here. That's what that little rasp bit is good for. And a little drum sander, you can open up and make nice clean holes out, take some of the weight out. And then once everything is done, before I put all the longerons in, and I know everything is going to be mounted properly, the servos and all that, then I can take that little rasp bit and just carve out some holes in this, make these formers here much lighter. The front end I probably leave the same, solid, gives it a little more stiffness, rigidness. Now for soldering, I like using this butane pen torch. Small little flame. It's a lot easier using this than a soldering gun. I've done that in the past. It's a pain. It takes forever to heat up. And if the soldering gun, even a wood burning pencil doesn't work all that well. I'm using silver solder by Radio Shack. They tell me it's a little stronger than plumber's solder. And tinning solution. And what I do with that is I squirt a little bit into this cup, and I use a Q-tip and just kind of heat the brass up, dab the Q-tip saturated with the tinning solution around it, and then apply the solder. It flows much easier, does a great job. So that's basically how it all goes together. And pretty soon I got a few more touches to do on Ice Racer number 2. And little Joshua Thompsoninski, that's how it's all done. See you next time. Stay tuned.